Yeah, where did he off?
So it was like, a question that sort of came up was, why would you let the seed if you can't control it? Because basically saying how people in the book were not able to control their own seeds, like how Violet was able to control her life on her own, using her own thoughts and stuff before the seed and being able to function without this technology in her. But once she got it, she's now dying because it's malfunctioning, and she doesn't have control over what she can do and can't do anymore. So basically the question is like, if these things are changing your life, why are so many people still into getting it? Is it like a social thing where society has brought it to that way?
I mean, it could be a trend, even we follow trends in society, like, oh, you have that, I want that, and you follow that. But it can also be part of, you now need it to live. And you can see, like, everyone needed it in order to be part of the new society. And, like, for example, Violet, who didn't have it, now she's the one, or she got it late, now she's the one who's, like, she's not fit to be in that society. It's almost like you have to think about it that way.
It's like conformity, like people are conforming to what they want, and like everybody's seeing how like this new trend is like what people, to them it makes life more, it makes it easier for them, like it makes them, it just makes it easier. And like what I noticed was that what's his name, Titus? Why he got so irritated with Violet, and I noticed he distanced from her was because he felt stupid around her. He saw how like, oh, this girl makes me feel stupid, it's because I have the feed, like, why do I feel like this? And he's like slowly starting to realize like how the feed actually, like, in a way, like they're controlling you so much that sometimes like, wait, am I even thinking? You know what I'm saying?
And so it kind of like takes the individuality away, like your own thoughts, like your own opinions in society away, because of how like everything comes to be, like how remember Violet was like, oh, I'm doing an experiment, she was at the mall.
Yeah, she wanted to manipulate the feed. Yeah. She wanted to try a project.
Yeah, and then like after she went through, they kept sending her feed saying, why didn't you buy this, why didn't you buy that? So like you can't really do anything. You can't do anything on your own without someone following you or something following after you. It was like, what is it, feed trap or feed something that kept coming out saying, oh, we can help you or something like that.
Yeah, but I don't know, that goes back to the trend, right? Where people kind of I think the process came gradually. So people first who installed the feed on their head gradually evolves to become 70% of the population now has the feed. And then the trend evolved. I think it's kind of similar to all the other evolution process. And then people who doesn't have feed, such as Violet's father, gets kind of behind, which is really the reason why Violet got the feed.
Again, I think the trend changes the way people think, because it's like, there's nothing wrong with being able to control your own life, but everyone is still sucked into the feed, and everyone has it, but they get it, and they don't realize that they have changed so much.
Yeah. And like the dad's perspective on the whole feed, it's like towards the end when he was talking to Titus or whatever, he was just saying how like Americans are like the whole corporation, like the purpose of America is to get people interested into consuming products. And this makes people like, they don't become interested on how like the products are produced, or like they don't get to think like, okay, well, they don't think of the consequences fully. So it's just like, they're just kind of being ignorant about it.
Oh, and that reminds me, I think that this book, when he wrote it, I think he's really based on what's happening in like current society.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that's happening in here, we can really reflect it from, or take the examples from like where we live right now. So I think that was interesting.
Like, I personally think like, because of the connections and the language that you like when you read, like I figure like the author is wanting us to think that's what's gonna happen to us. It can become a reality. We can actually become like almost robot,
Yeah,
almost
I
kind of.
think
Like controlled by like larger corporations.
Right,
Rather
rather
than
than
individual.
individuality.
I think it's interesting, is he saying that's where we headed, or is that where we already are? Because like the thing with the feed is that, in a way, it's a translation, like the feed is a translation of things we already have now, which I found really interesting, because we have like this like IMing and texting, we call each other, we're constantly connected with everyone around the world, especially with the internet too. Are we, like, are we actually on the feed, so to speak, right now? Like, I think that's a
Well, I
question we have
mean,
to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
We can see, well, I can see that it's sort of gradually changing to be exactly the way the books are saying. Like, I remember when we, well, I don't know if everyone's, but like when we were in elementary school, we used to call people's home phone landlines to reach our friends and stuff. But now, like, everyone, all little kids have cell phones and things like that. It's like it's gradually shifting over, which is
like next generation.
basically like what it said in the feed. It's like people are born with it and like it's installed when they're really young.
Yeah, so-
Whereas when Violet got when she was 7, it's not the norm anymore.
Because she was saying because they wanted to make it an option for her. Like her parents just didn't want to install it because the parents, they didn't even have it. They decided to stay with, you know, the past, and so they made it an option for her. And of course she said yes because she's little. So it's like she wants what everybody else has when you're little. You
Well,
want.
wasn't it because her father's, the cause was because her father got rejected from one of
Yeah,
the-
But she
The-
gave,
the-
he gave it
Yeah,
up.
that's why.
Yeah, and like the mom left away, like went away or whatever, and then like he had to raise her by
Right.
himself, and like he was having a hard time, so he provided this option for her.
Oh,
Another thing is like, we were talking about like how like we're almost like evolving towards the feed, like when does social convenience become social control? Where like where people are controlling us, like trying to get us to buy certain products all the time. 'Cause-
And like what he was saying, how like he says it's not gonna happen because it's not possible for a certain group of people to control a whole big group. I disagree with that. I think that's possible because the 75%, the 25%, they're not gonna have a big impact. Like they're choosing not to. It's not important. You know what I'm saying? Like the 75, that's like the majority. So in a way, they're already controlling the majority, and it's like these 25%. There's always gonna be those rebels. You know, like this. Like in society, there's always going to be like that default that's going to go against what everybody thinks, and that 25%, I think, you know, they couldn't afford it, or like they see it, they perceive it as being bad. So it's like I think the corporations, like this is possible. Like I think it's already like it's happening right now.
Yeah, like all the time we're getting bombarded with ads on the internet, TV, like anywhere we go, billboards. There's always people who are trying to sell us stuff, trying to persuade us to buy things. This isn't exactly anything new or different.
Yeah, and like you can tell so much, like what people, like I know that people, my teacher back at home was telling me how like his daughter was getting an interview or whatever, and like how the corporations or whatever, it was for a corporation, and they profile a person so much, and it's like all about personality. It's not based on experience or anything, and like through Facebook and everything, you can tell so much about a person. Like they can profile you based on Facebook, and that's why Facebook and MySpace and everything is so important, and that's why so many people invest it, because you can like diagnose a person like that.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Like even like when you apply for jobs and stuff, they even look at your Facebook. They don't like that's just another part of your resume. Like
Well, and also like how they're saying 25% of the population might not be getting in. You're saying like how maybe if they couldn't afford it or they're rebels. It's like everyone has cell phones now, but it's like it's not necessarily the same brand or the same type. It's a cell phone. And
Yeah.
like how she had the feed that wasn't the best quality, but she had a feed, and it's like, and also connecting to the insurance. It's like if you have money, you get insurance. If you don't, then you don't have insurance to go and figure that. But then buying insurance, there's different types of insurance you get as well. So that's what makes the big difference in society. But like everyone's still falling into a trap anyway.
Yeah.
So if you can have that, then what do? Do you just fall behind and not be part of the
Yeah.
current community? Is that what it is?
I don't know what part, this one actually reminds me of the health reform that we're doing.
Right.
But then, you know how in the book, I remember the president said that, oh, everyone should have food. It's kind of like corresponds to what we're doing right now. Everyone should have like good healthcare program.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, like I'm a bit
Because
confused,
like
'cause, like,
healthcare and feed are two different, I feel like.
I think she's just making
Insurance.
like almost like a connection